Welcome.
You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Well, cheers, gentlemen. This is why David's not around. It's very
Hey.
difficult to have a scotch and a cigar at 7 o'clock in the
Cheers.
morning. So, cheers, everybody. Welcome to Snobs and
Cheers.
Knobs. For those of you that have not been on our channel and just watched Snobs and Knobs, this is Rob Vega from Vaguely News. He's on our podcast. You can find him. It'll be somewhere above. And everyone knows Morton, Mr. Ad Hoc, and everybody kind of knows me, so we're good. So just so we all know, today I'm smoking a Davidoff, and I'm drinking an 18-year-old Tullamore Dew. So since I'm the only Scotch and cigar guy really on the show, everybody else is just kind of drinking just because it's fun to drink this afternoon. So
Right.
And I have this. I'm not a drag queen, but it's called drag. This wafer, but
Okay.
it's really filled with scotch.
So it's not just you then, Steve.
we like that. So we have competition, and then he's smoking a fake cigar with a it's one of those electric cigars. So yes. So I know. Listen, in South Africa, you're lucky you have power. So we're not gonna hold you to the high standards that we have.
Thanks for the gut punch.
Yeah, you know I love you. So I know you always have topics, and we know you have notes. So before Morton and I say we should discuss whatever, what notes or topics do you have that you would like to go off on today?
Well, when I was reminded by your little message that we were doing this today, I thought, oh, I should jot down some thoughts.
Right.
And there were a few, but the first line, I'm just going to read the first line.
Sure.
The first line is tolerance breeds intolerance. And I
Nice.
do explain it, but that's where my head was at. And I go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, because, radio guy, what can I tell you?
No. Let's explore tolerance breeds
Would you like
tolerance.
more?
Intolerance. Yeah,
Would
yeah.
you like
Tell
more?
him. Morton's never
Okay, well-
never seen or heard one of your rants, so this is going to be great for the people that have never
Oh.
seen Vaguely
Oh,
News. So
yeah.
yeah, come on.
So I think there's a lot of, what one talks about is informed by what's going on with you, the place you're living in, so on and so forth.
Right.
So, and the world, because this planet, wow. Okay, so the reason I thought of tolerance breeds intolerance is I thought, okay, there is such a global thing that I see where people are trying to change the way other people think.
Right.
And particularly people that we don't disagree with. And I'm thinking, yeah, why must people agree with you? Why do people have to have a viewpoint that aligns with yours? Do you know for a fact you're right?
Right.
Maybe they think they're right, but that's not the issue. The issue is we've got tons of people, millions of people that all disagree with each other, which I think, strangely enough, is great.
Yes.
I like that because sometimes, not often, but sometimes I'm wrong. And I go,
Wait,
wow,
you're wrong. You're wrong
I
sometimes.
know.
This
Yeah,
is a
it doesn't
shock to
happen
all of
often.
us. I know.
It doesn't happen often.
I know.
But you know what? It's great. This is the weird thing for me. As I get older, I realize it's actually nice to be wrong because, believe it or not, because it opens something up for you. You go, what? I
Right.
didn't realize that. It's tough to always be right. It really, really is. And I see these snowflakes around the world trying to change how other people think. And I go, just leave them alone. If they're not harming you, if they're not telling your neighbor to come and shoot you, if they're not rocking your house, making your life difficult, if they literally just have a viewpoint and a way of thinking and a lifestyle that you disagree with. In fact, you might hate. Well, so what? Why? Great. Whatever. Leave them alone. You would want them to leave you alone, so leave them alone. If
I
they're
agree.
trying to change your children or influence your wife or your husband or your partner, that's different. But just if you don't like the way they think, well, just leave. What are you going to do? Change their mind?
Right.
Then they're going to lie to you. This is what I wanted to say. Then they're going to lie to you. They go, you know what, Steve? You know what, Morton? You're right. This is what I think, and it's exactly the way you think. Well, and you know they don't. That's not what they mean. That's dangerous. Isn't that dangerous? That's bollocks.
Yeah.
Is this 18 plus show? That's bullshit.
Yes. Well, all our shows are technically 18 plus, but we just put a warning on this one because of the Scotch and cigars.
18 plus. I want that, by the way.
I'm going to let David know to put 18
Thank
plus
you.
on your show. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing about that. I agree with everything you're saying, but I don't think people today have any tolerance because, as they call, I don't know where this Karen thing came. What, someone must have complained once named Karen, and everybody said, "Oh, Karen's complaining," right? So I don't know I don't think we have tolerance anymore. I don't think people try to get along. I think people are always looking for fault, which is kind of pathetic.
Well, okay, let me clarify.
Okay.
What I mean to say is, and I think we know exactly what I'm talking about, there are a slew of movements around the world that are seeking to change the way intolerant people think and behave. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with what they're saying about those intolerant people.
Right.
Sure. But they don't think like we do. And therefore what? How are you going to change their thinking by acting in what you say in the Karen way? It's not going to work. So what I'm saying is I think it sprung from this need to change things. We were talking about slavery last week or the week before. Very bad. Obviously, nobody disagrees with that. If you do, you're an idiot. But I will defend your right to be an idiot. That's fine. You're an idiot, but there it is. But if someone, let's just look at that. If someone thinks they don't actually have a slave, they've never had a slave, they're not planning to have a slave, they sit in your lounge and they say, you know what, Steve Morton, I think slavery is a good thing. And you're going, what?
Yeah.
But they're not harming anybody. They're just expressing that viewpoint. What do you do at that point? Do you ram your opinion down their throat? Do you just go, whatever, have another cigar? Or where do you go? I'm using this as a metaphor for how the world is operating right now. We are so obsessed with trying to change the way people thinking because we think they're intolerant of things, and therefore surely we are now intolerant of their intolerance. You know where I'm going.
But here's the interesting.
But honestly, there are so many truths. Earlier days when I was young and I began in politics, I was brainwashed. I know what it is. And then you are taught that there's only one truth, and that is the truth. Don't try to say anything against this because it's written and it's said so many times that people believe it's the truth, and that's very dangerous. It's a common thing for bad people who try to conquer the world before. And the thing is that people are thinking like some manipulators. I'm a politician in Norway, and I see some people don't give a damn about your thoughts because it's just like they are in a cult or something. It's a religion to again and again tell their truth. But when I come or some other outside the box are coming to say our truth, that's not true. They say, that it's a conspiracy. It's something you're making up. It's irrelevant. Sorry, my English.
That's okay. It's better than our English. So go figure. And we were born speaking English.
It's
So,
much better than my Norwegian.
there you
So
go.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing on your point about slavery. If we were at a cigar lounge or a chemist shop and somebody said, "I think slavery is great," unlike Fox News, where we'd scream and holler at each other, most people would say, "Really? Do you want to like pontificate on that? Do you want to explain that to me?" And then I
where
think
did that
people,
come from?
right?
Right.
And then I think people would be like, "Hey, it's bad. Here's why." And I think you would have, I would like to think, at the cigars places that I used to go to, you'd have an intellectual dialogue about it, and people would be like, "Oh,
Right.
you see the points and go back and forth." And like this show, like there's never on any of our shows, there's never screaming and hollering, right? We're never going to be Fox, which is good. So, but I think that's what would happen. I think the problem is today because, and we always discuss this parenting, people don't understand that people are allowed to have other opinions. People don't actually know how to have a dialogue. People say we talk. Talking is not a dialogue. Conversation is not a dialogue. Dialogue is dialogue. Dialogue is the exchange of ideas. Talking is talking, and conversations is just like a talk. So look it up in the dictionary for you people that don't have a clue. So people don't have a dialogue anymore. They don't discuss. And I think that's the biggest problem we have. Not so much people want to change things. It's just like, I wear a black t-shirt. If you don't wear a black t-shirt, you're wrong. What's your logic?
Yeah.
No, it's just my mom and dad told me that. Well, that's wrong. We need to discuss it. And then they get right. Then they get all hysterical and they scream and holler. And it's just like, why are you raising your voice? Why are you getting hysterical? And I don't get that. It just blows me away.
You raised a very interesting point, which I heard a very wise woman on an obscure television show years ago mention. Anyway, here's the point. If you shut down ideas, even horrible ones,
Right.
first of all, those ideas are not going to go anywhere. And they won't be checked at all. The nice thing, the good thing about dialogue is, and it's actually quite challenging when you're with a group of people with different views. Not challenging, interesting. Where no one is, where we've got a bunch of adults that sit around and say, "I think slavery is good." Another guy says, "Well, maybe good 200 years ago." Then another one says, "It was always bad." And so we go. I don't know why we're using slavery, but anyway, it's a great metaphor. The point is, if you shut that down, if you make people feel they need to toe a line, they shouldn't say certain things, they must keep quiet, those ideas are not going to go anywhere. They're going to come out somewhere else. And also, this is what the point she made is, you can never check those ideas. You may have someone in your group who's a raving psychopath who thinks that eating people is a great idea.
No, that's a good idea, by the way. That is a good idea.
He never tells anyone. I mean, if Jeffrey Dahmer had literally been with some people and said, "Look, guys, how do we feel about cannibalism?" And he might have been checked. I'm just saying, you put these things out, and then people say, "Well, okay, Morton, I'm sorry you feel that way, but can you just clarify why you think that?" And then blah, blah, blah. "But have you considered this?" "Oh, I haven't." "Oh, okay." Or maybe I show you, maybe I tell you something that you hadn't thought of, or maybe you tell me something and I go, "Damn it, Morton, actually, you're right. Cannibalism is great." I don't know. But we don't do that. We don't. If you shut the ideas down, the conversation down, even because you don't agree with it, then you can never check it. Maybe you're the one who's wrong. I mean, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you haven't thought about it.
And you have to be humble, and that's one of the key points. I'm educated in communication, and in communication, you have, when you communicate, people are much better than me in this, but you are coding. You're coding, and the people, or if it's a mass communication, the peoples you are talking to are going to decode what you have coded. And then we have a dialogue with open minds. You know that. I remember when that was an issue, at least here in Norway, when we had the same TV. We only have the state TV, only one channel. And then you could discuss. Then you had something in common. You could discuss at work, at lunchtime. You could discuss. Okay, what do you think about that? Who was said? You had something in common to talk about. Nowadays, most of the people are watching Steven, but some of the people are
If they're
watching
smart.
others. Yeah, if they're smart.
If they're smart, they're watching our channel, of course.
Yeah, but it's a cult thing, and also one thing. We are born with two ears, not with the speakers, but
Right.
and one mouth. And if you are not listening to what the honorable other politicians are saying, for example, in a meeting, then you should not be in that council.
Right.
Because you have, but many people are just closing their ears. And then what's the point? It's no democracy. It's no,
No dialogue.
you know.
Well, our politicians need to hear that, because they don't listen to anybody. It's all like, we won't go into that because that's disgusting. But I do.
think global problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, the best ones, of course, are in the Philippines and Taiwan, where they fight. They physically brawl. That, to me, that's the best. That's the best MMA politics in the world. And then, of course, my next favorite after that is the British Parliament. I used to watch that as a kid on PBS, just because I love it when the guy goes, and my friend, the honorable blah blah blah, the horse fucker, and then he goes on to talk about whatever, and I'm like, I love these guys. These are the best. So I enjoy politics, but I liked it like when Reagan and Tip O'Neill were around, and they would have a scotch together and get plateaued together and have cigars and talk about how do we bring everybody together. And today it's not that way, which is terrible.
I think what's concerning to me is, and you both touched on it, and it's what's going on, is it's almost like these sides are getting further and further apart. And particularly in the US, I read recently, but it's not peculiar to the US, it's everywhere. Right. But we'll use the US as an example, because I read a thing, polling suggests that the Democrats and the Republicans are literally drifting further and further and further apart. And it's got nothing to do with the fact, it's all about emotions. So if a Republican says it and a Democrat's listening, he says, well, he's an idiot. You go, hang on, he might have had a point. Doesn't matter, it's a Republican. He not, as Morton said, he's not actually listening. He's just seeing a Republican, all right, and vice versa. By the way, Morton, I think the quote you mentioned, I heard it from a guy called Ranulph Fiennes, who I think is Ray Fiennes' uncle. He's an adventurer, and he said, he probably was quoting Twain or Gandhi, and he said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. But we don't. It's a power trip for us, and we like to, impose. But I think the pressure is ridiculous, where you've got to you've got to keep being right. Who wants that? I mean, one of the great things about, for me, getting older is you go, oh no, I want to just listen now. I mean, I'm learning. Learning is great. If you're not learning, what are you doing? You're dying.
That's true.
The only way you can learn is if you're listening. I mean, what a pleasure. I mean, imagine I've got a daughter now who's a biomedical scientist. You can just imagine the conversations we had during the pandemic. It was fantastic. So I was getting what I deemed the source, proper information. And then, of course, there was the whole media thing, of which I've got one leg in, and listening to the way they portrayed it. That's just one thing. By the way, can I just say, I had no idea. I knew the human race was stupid, but I never believed that we were that stupid. And when I say stupid, not able to have a proper dialogue. I'm not talking about intelligence.
Anyway, oh my God. We haven't been able to have a dialogue, I want to say, probably since almost the late 90s, the early 2000s, all of a sudden. And I think part of it is social media, which we're part of, right? But ours is at least dialogue. But I think it's social media, because back in the day, you actually had to talk or have you had a dialogue with someone to hear someone else's opinion, to give thought. You had to read the paper, read a book. Nowadays, between Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube short, people spend 30 seconds and they're like, no, I'm an expert. No, you're an idiot. You're not an expert. I mean, and they don't take the time to actually learn the subject matter. Where back in the day, I think when I was a kid, and if I was going to say something to my parents, I knew the subject matter. Like, whether I watched something on PBS, I read the Wall Street Journal, whatever it was, I had to know, because my parents would be like, really? And where did you come up with this opinion? And why do you think this way? And if I learned something in school, it's like because of whatever, right? So today they don't do that. The kids see something on whatever they're watching and they go, well, that's the absolute truth. And I'm like, right,
Yeah.
yeah, the phone. That's
Yeah,
their
yeah,
babysitter.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's terrible because they're not getting taught. And if no one's going to teach the generation that's coming up, in 50 years, we're doomed. I mean, granted, there'll be a few smart people that'll take over the world. I mean, the aliens, because now, they're lizard people. But other than that, what are we doing? Like the kids that we have today, I would say a percentage of them, and a large percentage of them, they're just losers. It doesn't matter
Two
that they're
things.
smart.
But
Two
Stephen,
things.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
know. Oh, sorry. But by the way, someone unimportant. You have a. I had. I have 2 years. I hear. Are you? You have some British accent, don't you?
I was born in London.
You're born in London. Good for
Oh,
me, because then I listen.
Just when he says London, he means London, Ohio, in the United States, and they teach you how to speak with a British accent in London, Ohio. So you can be
But
I've been in South Africa for quite a while, though. So,
okay,
I've got
what
some
I'm
South
go-
Africanisms in my accent, too.
what I was going to say, but by the way, is that it's political right people,
right,
not right or left, but the elite kind
right.
of. They say on television in Norway, and I see a lot of tellies from other parts of Europe, at least, and. Uh, it's so dangerous times now, they say, because they have the power.
Yeah.
It's too much polarization. We
Yeah.
have to go the same way. But what they are not saying is you have to follow us. We are not going to listen to anything of what you're saying. Uh, Polarization is very dangerous. We can have war. We can have civil, different kind of things. But they are deciding what's right. And
Right.
then again, we're slaves.
But here's one for you. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. There's a teacher. He's taking books out of the library apparently. But there was a teacher that was teaching his students. I want to say they were like, say, between 13 and 16 years old, about Michelangelo. Brought a book in and showed some of Michelangelo's works. Okay, so we know Michelangelo's works are going to be naked men, naked women, whatever. And he was fired for that. So we had a show the other day, and we said, what we really asked on the show. So what's pornography? I mean, we did it with Connor Akers because he gets censored now on YouTube because he's a world famous artist. His whole channel is his naked nudes. And YouTube's like, oh, no, that you can't do. And that's just recent. And actually, in our shorts, we have a whole bunch of his stuff. In fact, one of his things that we put up when we first started got like 55, 60,000 views of a naked woman. And it's like, YouTube's like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, so who's to decide then what art is, what pornography is? It's getting to a point where we're going back to like Plymouth Rock in the 1600s, and we're becoming very a Puritan, not just U.S. but a Puritan globe. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like it's not like it
yeah.
used to be. I'm not saying
No,
it should go back to where it used to be, but no one's free thinking anymore. No one's this, no one's that. I mean, if you go look at the masterpieces, a percentage of them are naked, like the Rubenesque period. They're all naked fat chicks. I mean, it is what it is, but you can't do that today. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting you said it, and Morton said as well. We're in dangerous times because
Right.
I don't think inside people around the world anything's changed in their heads. Some of them are keeping quiet, but I don't think the world's changed that much. You still have people who feel a certain way. You have other people who feel a certain way. It's just we've got a small group of people who are making a lot of noise, and as Morton said, in countries like Norway and here and the US, wherever, they've somehow managed to dominate the world stage, tell everybody how they should be thinking, and it's quite troubling because that mass, that majority of people are going to reach critical mass. They're going to get to a point when they go, this is nonsense.
Right.
I don't want my children seeing this. I don't want to be told to believe that. This is the way I was raised. This is what's important to me. I am going to defend what's important to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bug you, but you have no right to tell me what is important, what isn't important, and that's it. And one other thing I just wanted to say, you were mentioning when we were all kids, if you wanted to talk about something, you'd go and read a book. You would go to a library.
Yeah.
There was a certain amount of effort involved. You had to make the effort, read a book, do the thing. Now, I pick up a phone and I'm an expert in 30 seconds. So there's no learning. And one other thing I wanted to say was, I'm not sure, when you said we're not teaching the kids, I'm not sure, based upon the way their parents are behaving, that kids necessarily want to be taught anything. Because look at their role models. Would you want to be taught by that lot?
Right. But see, I guess when we were all growing up, it was a different time, because my grandfather instilled on me, like, manners maketh the gentleman. Full stop, right? And I instilled that onto my stepson. It's like, here's what you need to do to be a gentleman. And I've literally, when I was dating, before I met my wife, these girls would be like, why are you getting my door? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I would be like, because that's what a gentleman does. And they're like, I can do it. I'm like, listen, then you should date a Neanderthal, and he can drag you around by your hair. But I'm very much I will get your car door. I will get your chair. This is, we'll order food. Yeah. Like what a gentleman does. And, I'm shocked that people just don't do that. And I think that's part of it. So I was happy to be raised by my parents and grandparents, because I learned the old world, and I was okay with that. So when girls would say to me, why are you doing this? And we'd go to dinner. But when the bill came, I'm like, well, you're so liberated. Here's the bill for $500. They look at me like I had two heads. And I'm like, well, you say you're 50-50. There you go. I mean, I still pay it, of course. But my point to them was, you can't have it 80% of the way. You can't have it 50% of the way. It's either you accept me for the gentleman that I am, or you then are nothing more than, an F buddy. And if that's the case, then I don't really care. We can just split everything. And
I have to say something in response to that, because this morning I read an article came out of Australia, and the the headline was, are heterosexual relationships sexist? And it's fascinating to me, because it speaks to what you just said, because they speak about chivalry and the way, men will open doors for women and stand up when they enter the room and offer to pay the bill and do all these things, because shame. Women are so weak and so useless, and they need a man to take care of them. And this is the way heterosexual relationships are. And wow, we've got to we've got to treat women with more respect. And yes, they must pay the bill. Why don't they stand up when we come in the room? I don't know. It's bizarre that someone would that would be their take up. That would be their takeaway. Right. Because like you, Stephen, and I'm sure Morton as well, we were raised with the idea, you open a door for a lady. By the way, you open the door for a lady, not that, a lady, a woman with breeding, with culture, with a background, who reads a book, who's got some brains, a lady. So just to clarify, a gentleman opens a door for a lady, because a lady is a lady. And you stand up when a lady enters the room. I'm just throwing that in
and
there.
Here's what's really funny about that. In the South, when I go to Atlanta and the Carolinas for business, there are ladies. And I mean, I think they're still in the Jane Austen era, because they dress a certain way. They're very prim and proper. Yeah, but what they do behind closed doors, don't know, don't care. But when they are very thank you for the door, they understand what you're doing. In New York, 50-50. Here in Austin, I hold the door, and the first thing a girl will do is put her hand up. And now when they do that, I go, excuse me. And they look at me and go, do you see me standing here against the door? Like Bambi, you have eyes? I'm standing against the door. It's not going to close on you. I'm holding the door for you.
Yeah.
And they look at you and they don't know what to say. I had one girl who was about to open her mouth, and I go, don't even start. Just get in. And she just looked at me like, I'm like, this is what gentlemen do. I'm sorry you live in a city that people are just like morons. You know, it's the same in Los Angeles. So,
But what are values any
Oh,
longer?
sorry. Carry on.
Right.
Carry on.
No, I was rude. Sorry. But what is values? Today's values. How I don't understand the values of today.
there aren't
I
any.
can't
There aren't
get
any.
them.
There aren't
There
any
aren't any.
values more, and that's the problem.
Can I say the problem with values, and we
Yeah.
are, I actually know for a fact, I can see we're on the same page.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
values right now are considered, and I use this article as an example, they considered, first of all, old-fashioned, and put an IST on any word you can think of, sexist, racist, whatever.
Right.
It's demeaning. Values. What's that? Because when I was mentioning that article, what I wanted to say was the implication the author was making, and it was written by a woman, was incorrect, because I have never thought of ladies as somehow weaker or inferior to me. In fact, the exact opposite is true. I was raised by a single mom who was stronger than I will ever be in any way. And I'm not patronizing it because it was my mom. She was unbelievable. For me to even consider that opening a door for a woman because she's weaker is blatantly idiotic. But this is the takeaway that people have. Because if we break that down, if we break down the values, if Steve just lets the door go and she crashes down and a car runs her over, well, then what? Then what can't we? It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of breeding. It's a sign of caring. We're not saying you're somehow weak. If I respect you, it doesn't mean I think you're weak. If anything, I think you're strong.
Yeah. I did the same. My mom, after my mom and dad got divorced, I was raised by my mom. And it was very much instilled on me that this is it. And I have never looked at a lady, for lack of a better term, as the weaker sex. In fact, everybody knows I finished the book of the world. And let me tell you, up until about 200-300 years ago, women kicked ass. And for some reason, all of a sudden, we put them in the closet. And I'm like, what happened to all these chicks from back from Samaria all the way up until like the 1800s that were like, you might have been a concubine, but I mean, you could have been a concubine or a courtesan in the Asian Empire, but some of them became empresses, some of them became queens. I mean, like they kicked ass. I mean, they didn't tolerate anything. And I'm just like, what happened to those? And now women, of course, are all, we're, but it's like, no one ever put them down. No. That's just American, like, oh, women, whatever. But now it's like I think they're like all of a sudden it's like China, like they woke up, and so they're like, look at us. And ladies, it's okay to look at you, but if a gentleman or a man, for lack of a better term, wants to get your door, or wants to hold the door, or he stands up when you enter a room, I'm going to teach you to play my favorite game, which is called Go Hide and Go Fuck Yourself. Keep your mouth quiet. And let him do that because he is being a gentleman, and let him be a gentleman. You don't have to be the C word because some guy wants to show you a little respect, because on our show, Social Intercourse, all I hear from the ladies there, we get no respect. I want a man to respect me. Respect. Every article I read about a woman says, I want respect. So when we do respect you, all of a sudden you get mad. So you can't have it both ways. It's either you're a little bit pregnant or you're pregnant. It's that simple.
Well, first of all, I think respect is something you earn. That's the first thing.
But the girl at the mall that I hold the door for, I don't know her, so I'm just doing it out of being nice.
But the dangerous thing, getting back to this, the dangerous thing we have now is when all these values and things get removed and broken down, and intolerance creeps in for any other point of view. It gets pretty dangerous. And let's just say women are physiologically superior to men and men are physically superior to men. That is just nature. That's the way it is. Perhaps way back in the day, we would pick something up for a woman because we were a little stronger physically, not mentally, physically. That isn't a sign. That's just a natural trait. It's not something you earn. It's not something you create. It's just the way you are. Generally, men are bigger. Generally, women are smart. I don't know. Hopefully. But each, can I say gender these days? I don't even know. Each one has got their own strength and so forth. But if we remove that, then what's going to happen one day is you'll get on the subway and you'll be sitting there, and there'll be some idiotic guy, some 20-something guy who's strong as an ox, and a little old lady creeps in, and she's missing a leg, and he won't get up for it.
They
And
do that
that's
now.
what's going to happen. And
They
he's
do it
gonna,
now.
yeah, and he's going to sit there. He won't move. She's in all kinds of pain. And then the moment he gets up, some woman's going to stand up and say, "What, is she weak?" And he says, "Yeah, she's literally missing a leg."
Yep.
Yeah.
I will say one thing in New York. When I'm on the bus or the tubes or a subway, and I stand up, when I see like an older person, or even I could be a 20-year-old girl, it could be a 10-year-old girl, don't care, and it's full, and I'm sitting with my wife because we're going to go somewhere, and I look at them and I go, I stand up and go, "Would you like the seat?" Some of them say no. Some of them will go, "Are you sure?" And I'm thinking to myself, if I wasn't sure, I wouldn't have stood up. And the others will be like, "Thank you so much." And you see people just look at you like, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't help it that you were raised with no savoir-faire, right? I can't help that you don't know things. I know things, and I instill that on my stepson. I instill that on whoever. And so it really is manners maketh the gentleman. And I think it's okay in this day and age to still be a gentleman, to whether you're a gentleman to a female or a male, it's not material. Just be a gentleman. And I think that's the most important thing. And that goes to your tolerance breeds intolerance.
But smartness. We're talking about people have to be smart and so on.
Right.
Smartness. What is it really? You know, I know people who are very well educated, professors who don't have EQ at all.
Right.
They are smart and they've been reading all their lives, but they never had emotional feelings with themselves.
Right.
I think at least they're not showing it out, and they go with, you know, if you're on a hospital, you have the chief surgeon or whatever. You can count on how many pens they have on their pockets, you know,
Right.
and they get more and more up there. And hello, I'm in a hospital. Where's your okay? I know you have IQ. I know you do brains surgery, but why don't you talk to me as a normal people?
Right.
Well, may I just say that's this is obviously something that I've discussed with my wife and friends before, this IQ EQ thing, and it's something I actually take quite seriously. When I was a kid growing up, IQ was the be all and the end all. And a little bit of information. I once took an IQ test. I did far too well on it, and it created all expectations, and it almost derailed my school career. The only reason I bring that up is I had very little EQ as a kid. I was very self-absorbed. I still am to some extent. No, yes, I am. I'm an only child. What can I say? And my mum, because my parents had sort of an issue, she was a single mom. She kind of mollycoddled me a bit, and that created a low EQ. I wasn't aware of my environment. I wasn't really interested in what other people had to say. I didn't sense that. I didn't see that. I didn't want to see it. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying. You have these highly intelligent, but in a very narrow sphere. But IQ, for me, smartness, you mentioned smartness. Smartness is a broad thing. It's broad. IQ is a very thin sliver of that. You can have an IQ of 150, but you can be completely moronic when it comes to social interaction. And for some strange reason, maybe I've described it, some strange reason, you get a lot of that. You get these very educated, so-called high IQ people who have no idea that how they can't read a room. And all I can say is that next year, I'll have been married to my wife for 30 years, and she taught me EQ. And all I can say is I'm incredibly grateful. And when I became a dad as well, twice, that also helped me. And it's great. I'm not saying people can't learn the skill; they just don't care to.
Right.
Perhaps that's the problem. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Same here. My wife. I don't.
We have a doctor here, Dr. Stephen. I think you have a very I don't know if you have been taking any EQ tests. I have, because I've been in a lot in hiring people, so
Right.
I've used that. They have the disc method from USA. You're learning a lot of it. It's crazy how you can learn to, as you said so vividly, to read a room, or to read another. You can tell if another guy or a woman, we're talking about woman, if she is hurting or if she's doing well, only by looking and observing her eyes. Eyes is magnificent. You can see
Yes.
everything on eyes.
But people don't do that anymore, right? Because people are so absorbed with themselves. They want to be a TikTok or Instagram star. It's like, how many followers do I have? And I'm like, uh-huh. And so
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm self-absorbed, but I am. And my wife will say, and she's rightly so, I get something fixated in my mind. I have one track and I'm like, I have to do it. And then she'll be like, excuse me, there's a world out there. Or she'll go, take the dog, and the puppy and I'll go to the park and play. And the dog and I go play, and I see all the other dogs and all the other people, leave my phone, and I'm like absorbed with the dog. And it's like, oh yeah, there is a world out there. But it's like I get very singly focused. So my EQ sometimes is 0. And sometimes my EQ is 1,000,006. Oh yeah, I'm all over the scale with it, because I don't think like, and what are we calling you? Roller Rob, the guy with the R name. He'll tell you I go, like, I get on a thing and I have to stick on it. I have to do this, I have to do that. And so sometimes I just don't know. And my wife will be like, Earth to Steve, Earth to Steve. And I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second, I gotta come back. But I've been that as a kid, it was the same way. I was sort of like, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I didn't really care. To an extent, if you're a friend of mine, I care more about how you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're someone I don't really know, I can read the room. And what I may do is I'll be like sympathetic, but I'm not like, it's like, okay, great. Thanks for sharing. You've wasted 30 seconds of my life. I'm never going to get it back. In my mind, I won't say that to them, but that's how I think. So I'm still evolving with my EQ. I'll probably be 10 million years old before I actually get it. But I'm very much, because I think, and this is terrible to say, but I'll say it because everyone that knows me knows I've said this before. Most people are a waste. So for me to have dinner, scotch and cigars, and spend time with someone, I have to like enjoy your intellectual qualities. I have to enjoy you as a person. If I don't, I don't even want to go. Like, why would I even go to a cup of coffee? Because you're wasting my time. And so I think that's part of that EQ that I'm trying to learn. And my wife knows it. And my business partners in the past know that as well. They'll be like, oh, this is going to be a short meeting. Because I'm just like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And I'm just like, if I can't, I have to like you. And if I don't like you, I don't want to be bothered with you. I can't do business with someone I don't like or trust. It's like, you got to press the flesh, got to shake hands and know that you got my back and I have yours. And everybody that we have on our channel, I like I would have dinner with everybody. So, because I like them, I like spending time with them. I mean, for some of them it's therapy, and they've told us that. And for others, it's like, this is awesome. I can't believe they're saying this. It's great. And it makes me smile. So I think everybody's a little different. So I'm still learning EQ.
Yeah,
I'm still
of
a
course.
Neanderthal. So my knuckles still drag on the floor, apparently. But we're getting there, I think. So there you go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rant, but it just made me think.
Not at all. I think your point is valid, and strangely enough, without meaning to agree with you, I do agree with you. I mean, life is short. Why would you spend it with a bunch of people that you have absolutely nothing in common with? They don't make you laugh. It's got to be transactional. I mean, it's just a fact. There's got to be something in it for you. That sounds wrong. Like you said, they're a waste, and I shouldn't say that. Well, right. Steve, I think that's true. I think, as my father would say, there's a lot of oxygen thieves out there. People who just occupying space, doing what? What are they doing? What are they? They're not even honest with themselves, let alone other people. So what's the point? I will say this: I have a rule. I can't really be friends with people that don't like dogs or aren't honest with themselves. That's it. Amongst others, you got to like animals. I have a problem. That's just my bias. Someone who doesn't like animals, I go, okay, we can just, you be there and I'll be here and I'll see you in the street and that's it. But I can't be friends with someone. I can't share who I am with somebody who doesn't have a softness for animals. Any animal. I'm like my father. My father was Dr. Doolittle. He loved animals and all animals, everything, and not people in Parliament. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a different animal. That's a different animal. That's why. That's a different animal. So, and gentlemen, with that note, we've had another great show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And also, we will be back in a fortnight. So the people in America, you're going to have to look up Fortnite. For the people in Europe and the rest of the world, you'll know what Fortnite is. It'll give you a clue. There's 14 days in a fortnight. So we'll be back in 2 weeks on Saturday. Thank you to Mr. Vega for showing up, or Mr. Woods, depending on which personality he's going with. Morton, it's always a pleasure to see you. David will be back next week. David, of course, had technical difficulties because he lives in the Netherlands. Apparently a finger, somebody stuck their dike in a finger in a dike, and the windmill stopped. So David has no internet. They're fixing the dike now. And I also understand they're going to help the girl as well. So anyway, once again, everybody, thank you so much. And we will all see you next week. Have a wonderful, or in 2 weeks. Cheers.